Come be a part of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics with your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. Hear the voices of liberty speaking all across America. Doc Holliday provides thought-provoking interviews and commentary about the issues and actions that are afflicting this country and what we need to do to get America back on track. Get fired up, get inspired, get on board with Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right now.
And here we go.
And once again, that's the sound of rock cracking. You've got Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right here on webtalkradio.net. That's webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Holliday, and we're glad to have each and every one of you. Yes, it is the week of Thanksgiving. Is there anything worth giving thanks about? Think about that. Is there anything worth giving thanks about? The answer is yes. We're alive. We're well. Hey, I don't know the election in 2020. It's been over a year now. Nobody will let us look at all the votes. So what do? Well, you don't give up. And we're going to talk about that today. Be thankful we still live in a free country. Our liberties are being squeezed and taken away in many cases. People are losing their jobs. Many are about to lose their jobs because of vaccine mandate. They've changed the definition of the vaccine. The CDC did. So there's a lot of things out there that give us concern, but can you give thanks in an attitude of gratitude? Yes, I can. Yes, you should be able to. There's a lot of things going on. We're going to talk about that today. There's things worth giving thanks about. Yes, we live in still the greatest country ever on earth. We have some work to do. We have a lot of work to do. But we've got to give thanks. Abraham Lincoln signed the Thanksgiving Declaration. We've talked about Thanksgiving since the Pilgrims came over and had the first Thanksgiving. A time of celebration to give thanks to God. And Americans across this land are still going to have turkey and take time and celebrate the things that God has blessed this nation with. Now, a lot of people may just watch football, eat turkey, drink liquor, drink some beer, have some fun with family. But I hope everyone will give thanks. There's going to be some people giving thanks that Joe Biden's president. We live in a free country. Let them do it. Hey, give thanks because you got to have faith that things are going to get better. And you got to remember the story of Joseph in the Bible. Some of you may not be familiar with the Bible and the story of Joseph. But he was put in prison, accused of false things. He's put in prison by his own family, put in a pit to die, or decided to sell him into slavery in the land of Egypt. And there he thrived even when he was sent to prison. But he ended up being a number 2 person in all of Egypt. Took him about, I think, 17 years to get there. But one time he told his brothers who had put him in there, years later when he saw him, what you meant for evil, God used for good. And so there's some people out there who did some evil things during this past election. How much? How many? Don't have the proof. But I rest easy at night. I give thanks to God that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I don't have to be vengeful. That's not my role. I've given that to God. If there's some people who participated in evil and keeping Trump from being the true president, if he had the votes to be that, people who cheated, I am at ease and I sleep good knowing that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And he can do a whole lot more to people who committed evil than I could ever think about, or you could ever think about. So I rest easy. I hope nobody did anything evil. I hope nobody cheated on the election. But for those who did, you're in the hands of the wrath of God. He can do what he wants. He may forgive you if you ask for it, if you confess it publicly. But hey, this is not a show for attempting to get evil doers to confess to political shenanigans. That's not what we're here for. But we're going to give thanks today in today's show, show you some things to give thanks for. But there was some politics involved last week. And we had the Rittenhouse verdict of not guilty, that he used his guns in self-defense in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And there were celebrations, and there were people who were very upset that a jury of his peers found him not guilty. But there's some reasons to celebrate that American justice system came out with a verdict that exonerated Mr. Rittenhouse. Now, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but there was also a bill passed, the Build Back Better program we've been hearing about. Well, it passed the House. Now, it's still got to go through the Senate. Joe Manchin says he doesn't like it. It's like a $1.7 trillion bill. Like, yes, we need to spend more money, and we need to pour more gasoline on fire inflation. And this White House actually said, pass this bill and inflation will go down. Will they all resign if that doesn't happen? I wish we could. I wish some reporters would say, would you resign if that doesn't happen, and see what they did. They won't let Doc Holliday ask the questions, will they? But I will say, in that bill, it shows the hypocrisy and the irony of the SALT. The Democrats who say, let's tax the rich. But in that bill, they are giving tax breaks to the super rich. Not the middle class, but to the super rich. Like Nancy Pelosi and her husband. They will get a big tax break because they, in that bill, if the Senate passes and is signed by President Biden, which we don't, there's a lot of things we don't know, but in the bill that the House passed, they were getting rid of the, or actually putting the SALT agreement back in to taxes. And what is that? We've gone over it before. But SALT means state and local taxes. Trump said you can't be exempt for more than $10,000. You can take $10,000 off your taxes, but that's it. That's the limit. And a lot of the super rich on that both coasts, wherever there's high taxes, say California or New York, where you have high state taxes, local taxes, they deducted sometimes millions of dollars. If somebody made $30 million, they may get to deduct millions, $100 million, millions. These are people who don't need tax breaks. And yet here we are, the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, giving tax breaks to the super rich. And where's AOC? Where is our socialist friends, Mr. Bernie Sanders? So they'll say they're against it, but if they really are against it, then convince your fellow Democrats that you don't want to give tax breaks to the rich. Convince them. You can't, because that's your donors. That's the donors to the Democratic Party. They've been begging to get out from under what Trump put on them. We've talked about this. We won't go in a minute. I got a clip I play from Stuart Varney on Fox Business News with one of our congressmen talking about this. I'm going to play that clip in a minute, but to help you understand, Trump is a visionary. This has been happening for decades, where the super rich, and they live in high tax states, and they would deduct these taxes. And what it was, they were deducting millions and millions of dollars, single individual taxpayers. But Trump realized this is not fair, because they're not paying their fair share, because they live in high tax states. They're deducting these high taxes so that people who live in a middle America, not in these high tax states, they're paying more federal taxes than they should, because those in New York and California aren't paying their fair share. It was unfair, and Trump fixed it. And why is it unfair, real quick? Well, this is America. If you live in New York, if you live in California, if you live in one of these high tax states and you want to pay high taxes, you vote for them. You vote for the people to put the high taxes on you. But the people in, say, Mississippi, Tennessee, they don't get a vote, and you getting the high taxes. They don't get the benefit of those higher taxes in New York or California. So you can have them if you want them. If you vote for people who want high taxes in your state, that's your privilege. That's democracy. That's the republic we live in. But you don't put those on other people. And that's what happens when you get this huge exemption for the super rich of millions of dollars every year, but from the SALT deductions. Trump saw that. He's the only visionary that I know of. Nobody's talked about this for decades. To the degree that in 2017, Trump made it happen. And because so many of these are Democratic donors, they said, you get our tax breaks back. They told Nancy Pelosi, because she's one of those multimillionaires, her and her husband, they will get big tax breaks because of the legislation that she put through. And AOC saying tax the rich, where is she now? Where is she now? She just had a bill that the Democrats voted on. She had a chance to say tax the rich, but she did not. Very ironic. Hey, they ain't talked about that on Fox News. Let's Fox Business News. Let's take a minute, listen to that clip, and then we're going to talk about what we should be giving thanks for on Thanksgiving week.
Flat out split big time over the SALT deduction. New Jersey Congressman Josh Gottheimer says no SALT, no deal. Bernie Sanders thinks he's going the other way. He hates this. He says at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, the last thing we should be doing is giving more tax breaks to the rich. Congressman Michael Waltz, Republican from Florida, is obviously having a pretty good time watching the Democrats tear each other apart. But that gap on SALT, that seems virtually unbridgeable.
Yeah, hey, Stu, you're going to see the moderates really pull back here. They see the writing on the wall. The American people have spoken. But I'm telling you, you're going to see the progressives double down. That they wish they had gotten this done sooner and bigger because they see their window closing over the next 6 months. And they're going to push even harder. But on the SALT piece, I mean, it's the hypocrisy and the irony there is just so rich. Just a few statistics. You know, Obama's own chair of the Economic Council said this will benefit Americans earning $50 to $300 million a year and give them a tax cut. So much for tax the rich there. And that 85% of the deduction will go to the top 5% of earners. So this isn't Northeastern Americans, you know, everyday Americans asking for this. This is the Democrats' donors banging the table for it. That's who it's going to benefit. And, you know, just as a point of comparison, New York's state budget is double that of Florida's, even though the population is the same. So these people all voting with their feet to leave the Northeast and come to states like Texas and Florida to pay less in state taxes are then going to see their federal dollars go right back in to subsidize and pour fuel on the fire for these high tax blue states that people are sick and tired of. I mean, just the irony is rich there.
I can't see if the Democrats go gung-ho, more progressive, they go further to the left, more spending. I don't see how that can possibly get through the House or the Senate. There are still moderates in that party somewhere, aren't there?
Well, I think that what you're seeing Pelosi do is try to please both sides and just get it out of the House so she can claim victory, knowing that things like amnesty are going to fail because of the Byrd rule over in the Senate, right? And knowing that this is both dead on arrival for both Sanders and Manchin. But if she can just please both sides in the House and get it out, right, then she can blame the Senate and say she did what she had to do.
Well, I hope the congressman is correct. I really do, because I hope it never gets through the Senate and it's never signed into law. But Nancy Pelosi had to have something to say, look what I have done. And what she's done is she's shown the true hands of the Democrats. They say tax the rich, but they give tax breaks to the super wealthy who donate to their campaigns. Oh, my. The irony and the hypocrisy of it all. Hey, you're listening to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. This is Thanksgiving week, and we're about to get into some things that we should always give thanks about. And there's a lot of things that you may know of that I won't mention on the show, but count your blessings, name them one by one. We're going to count some of those in just a minute. But we do have a book called Bedrock Truths. You can get that book by going to www.docholliday.org, Holiday of 2 L's in it. The book was written by yours truly, Dr. Ed Holliday, and Dr. Alveda King, and Dr. Alex McFarland. We'd love to get that book out to you if you haven't got one yet, or, hey, Christmas time is coming up. Time to order one. We'll get it to you so you can get it out to your friends and relatives for Christmas. It's called Bedrock Truth, and we'd love to get that book out to you. Now, one of the things that we're going to look at coming into the end of the year in December, we're going to be looking at the economy. I have a show talking about what we see, and we've had shows about cryptocurrencies and Crypto Corner, and trying to explain to you some of the blockchain technology. So conservatives, we need to be the leaders on this. So many times we let Silicon Valley take the lead, and see you got Facebook and Google and Twitter, and what did they do? They silenced conservatives. They silenced the President of the United States because they didn't like his views. And that is very troubling. Do not just stick your head in the sand when we're talking about blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies. You need to know what's going on. Not that you have to be an expert, but don't be afraid of the technology. Look at it, know about it some. We got some past shows that help you walk into, explaining some of the things with cryptocurrency. So you need to know some things because it's in the future, and conservatives must take the lead on this. We let the liberals take over Silicon Valley. We can't let that happen again. Listen, very, very important that you at least learn how to buy some Bitcoin, or find how to find a wallet, or set you up an account with something like Coinbase or Gemini. Here in America, very safe. Set up something to that you can have an account where you can just buy a little bit of Bitcoin or another altcoin, and we talk about that. I'm not saying invest in it. I'm not saying this is your investment. I'm saying just know how to do it. Don't let it scare you. So go back and listen to some of our past shows, and we'll be doing some of those coming up in 2022. And that, of course, will be the midterm election year. Very, very important. If you believe that America doesn't need socialism leading the way, then like our mantra, it's coming to be, if you're against socialism, don't ever vote for a Democrat again until they kick the socialists out of their party. If they're not willing to kick the socialists out of their party, don't be willing to vote for them. It's just simple. It gets down to that. Enough said. Now, let's get into why we should give thanks today. America's unique with Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving doesn't go around the world. There's a lot of societies that look at American Thanksgiving, but it is our day to give thanks. It's our day to give thanks to God Almighty. And people be thankful for a lot of things, but we recognize as a country that we need to give thanks to God. And Abraham Lincoln said to pray. And others have said to pray. Give some time to God and thank Him. And I thank Him for our United States military. I thank Him for the soldiers, the men and women who put themselves in harm's way. And there's a lot of things that trying to get woke in the military. They're throwing people out because they won't get vaccinated, even if they have a religious objection to a vaccine. There's a lot of things I don't like going on, but I have to say thank God for the American soldier. Thank God for our troops overseas protecting us in places that are cold, places that are hot, places that are lonely. And thank you to the American soldier. Those who are listening, thank you. And I give thanks to God for you. And I also want to say, America, we need to give thanks for those who've gone before us. It's a unique history. It's not a beautiful history. There's some black eyes. There's some things that are hurtful and some wounds. Some wounds don't seem to want to heal. But we have a Constitution that has kept us together, binding us together since the 1780s, the late 1780s. I thank God for that Constitution. I thank God for the changes that have happened in America that's made America better. Not always easy and not always pretty, but America, the people who've gone before us, have given us this time of freedom where we are now, where we can take our economy and we can bless it with our hard work. We can bless it with our ingenuity and with our innovations. Take what we've been given and make it better. And there's some people think we've had a tipping point. There's too many freeloaders, too many people who don't want to work. We're not there. We still have hope in America because we got a Constitution we can stand on. We got God above, and we're giving thanks to God above for what He's put us in, placed us in this time. And we can thrive, or we can barely survive. I vote for thriving. That means we got to get off our rear ends and we got to get to work and do some things, especially in this election year. It's time to roll up our sleeves and make sure we don't go into the way of socialism. If they divide us, if they make us mad, if they keep us separated, when I say they, I'm talking about the socialists and the communists and those who want the American jewel for freedom and liberty. People around the globe look at this country, and those who love authoritarianism, who love communism, who love dictatorships, they want America to fall because they know America has stood for freedom and liberty. And those people in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, the Uyghurs, people that are being oppressed by China, people who are scared of Putin coming across like the Ukraine, and those in Crimea who have been conquered by Putin and the Russian army under Obama-Biden administration. There's people around the world who are suffering in the Middle East, but they still know America means freedom and liberty. Why do you think they're coming across the borders in such huge numbers? Well, they want to be in America. East Germany had to put up a wall so that their citizens wouldn't run to freedom in West Germany. We need a wall so that we can have freedom and bring people in as needed when they're registered, when we know who they are. We don't need people coming in who won't get to America to be freeloaders. We need people who will innovate and become entrepreneurs and fit into our system. But if we don't know who's coming in, how do we know? What are they bringing in? What diseases are they bringing in? Americans have to wear masks, take mandatory vaccines. Are they putting a shot in every arm of illegal immigrants before they ship them off into our country? We need to know those things. But I do give thanks that we live in a country that people dream about coming here. Look, I give thanks for our jury system. We just saw Mr. Rittenhouse last week was exonerated, found not guilty in a political trial. People saw it as a political trial in so many ways. It was such a horrible prosecution. And the jury saw through what the horrible things were and looked at the facts. Even though MSNBC, a reporter, was kicked out and banned from the courtroom because of the things they were doing. And if you watched some of the liberal media, you'd think Rittenhouse was a white supremacist. Oh, he was called that by the President of the United States, Mr. Joe Biden. And he was called a white supremacist. I hope they sue. I mean, there is a case of defamation right there. And so we'll see what happens. But thank God that we live in this country where a jury found Rittenhouse not guilty. There's so many things to give thanks for. Our health, even this pandemic with COVID around, and we still are finding new medicines, new vaccines for other diseases. Not just talking about COVID, but looking on the cellular level, molecular level. The future of medicine is so bright because they're discovering so much. But I just got to tell you, to get there, we have to fight for liberty and freedom because it's trying to be taken away. But I give thanks that we got the opportunity to do that. And so should you. Our economy, as bad as it tanked when we shut things down, the only thing that's keeping this country from a fantastic Trump-like economy is Joe Biden and the Democrats. And people are wondering, what's the stock market? Why is it going up? Keeps going up, and Joe Biden's president. Well, the Trump tax cuts are still in effect. What the Democrats have done, now they're spending money, but they haven't changed the tax code yet. They want to. And as soon as they do, we may have a crash. As soon as this, if they vote in this $1.7 trillion social infrastructure bill, what they call it, the Build Back Better plan is just giving money to groups, empowered to groups. I mean, if it's voted in, then we may have a crash. We may have a crash of this whole economy if people don't get back to work. They're talking about all the jobs that are in this Build Back Better. We can't even fill, there's 10 million jobs we can't fill now. So there's a lot of things that are shaky, on shaky ground, but I want to thank God that I live in America. I want to thank God for this audience that listens to the podcast. And listen, let's finish out 2021 strong, standing for liberty and standing for freedom. And let's get prepared for 2022. It's a record year. If we want socialism to stay out of America, we're going to have to stand strong, speak loud, be active, and make sure we get the message out. No one votes for Democrats until they kick the socialists out of their party. The reason we're moving into socialism is because they're enabled by the Democratic Party. And if the Democratic Party won't kick the socialists out, then we need to kick the Democrats out of office. That's the way I look at it. I'm Dr. Ed Holliday. You're listening to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. We're glad to have you. Hey, we'll see you next week. Give thanks to God Almighty. Give thanks for all the many things. Count your blessings. And I'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us today, and remember to listen again next week for another edition of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You can order Ed's new book, Bedrock Truths, by clicking on the book cover right in front of you on the screen, or visit DocHolliday.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.